Hello there. We have a third line day. It's a day of discovery, a day of bumping into things to see if they work or not, a day for making and breaking bonds, perhaps. The third line is a material line. And when we think of the genetic continuity, well, we live on a third line planet. It's very material, this planet that we live on, in all sorts of ways. Third lines are mutative by nature. And we need this energy to move us forward to prevent stagnation. Stagnation leads to death and degeneration. Gate 8 has the third line that is called the Phoney. It's a good time to see if you've got any word prejudice hanging around about this one. When I read it before, when I was preparing to do this presentation about the Phoney, oh, good. Great. I love these lines. The lifetime learning we have is the acceptance of style and not the substance of communal actions. We know the third line has its trial and error process, and as an individual third line, it is bumping into lots of different ways of how to get along with the collective in order that it can get its contribution accepted. And remember, the third line is very adaptable. So they keep on bumping into a way to do it and it works or it doesn't work. So they bump into another way. And eventually they get to that point where they've adapted and they find the way that works. In order to connect to the collective, the individual needs a certain amount of phoniness. They have to get along with the collective because they're not natural bedfellows, the collective and individuality. They each of them think the other is a bit weird, a bit strange. If you've ever been served food or drink in a restaurant or a cafe or something, and the waitress just sort of says, enjoy, as she waltzes away, you know that she doesn't really care whether you're enjoying it or not. That's a kind of phoniness. She's contributing her service. She doesn't really want to get into any kind of conversation with you. She doesn't want to know about you. But it's still something that she does in order to pretend to make you feel comfortable. It's a bit like the have a nice day, which sometimes can be really sincere and feel really nice to hear. And other times it's like, really, well, just don't say anything. It's much better. In the exaltation, we find the perfected and rarely detected superficial intimacy. The example as an expression through style, not substance. Individuals have perfected the art of pretending that they want to be friends with others, that they really like others. But mostly they don't, and there are always exceptions, of course, but many individuals, they don't want to be bothered, and it's not personal, it's just the process of the individual, and a little bit of phoniness helps them to be able to deal with the others. In the detriment, we find a shallowness that underestimates others and overestimates its own ability to continue its deception without detection, an over-reliance and unfounded confidence in style. So imagine we got this 8-3 wants to make their contribution. They know they need others in that process. So they make their contribution and then they break the bonds that they've made in order to get those contributions out. They're only friends with you in order to make their contribution possible. And they don't really realize that you know that. You know they're being superficial in their friendship with you. And we say superficial, that's another word we could get a bit prejudiced about, but, it's their process. It is what it is. They are what they are. And if they're being correct, then actually it doesn't matter. And other people can be really quick to judge that. They can say, oh, you're such a phony. But, in a way, that's a weird kind of compliment if this is your definition. And the gate 14 in the line 3, service. What does service have to do with being a phony? How does it ground that energy? The third line we said already is very material in its nature. It can recognize the value of being phony. It sees that there is a kind of service in that. The 14:3 tells us that the key to power lies in a selfless contribution to others. The contribution of the 8 is underpinned by this service, and there is a true value in that. The moon, it's just going into gate 40 at 8 minutes past 10. BST, I don't think I've said that for a while. All these timings are in British summertime, British springtime, actually, as we have at the moment. Gate 40 is a gate in the ego center. It's called deliverance. It's the gate of aloneness. This is the love of work combined with the willpower to be able to push oneself, naturally taking on the role of provider for the family or the community or the tribe. Half of the channel of the bargain, this gate needs to be appreciated for its hard work. And this in turn fuels the willpower and the willingness to continue to look after the needs of others. Loyalty is really important to gate 40. And then at 21:31, we go into gate 64. This is a gate in the head center, bringing the mental pressure to make sense of confusion, to make sense of the memories of past experiences, to make sense of all those pictures that are jumbled up, all those images that are in the brain, in the mind. They're not in the mind, they're in the brain, in the head. Get the words right. And these pictures, they're not one after the other in any kind of a logical sequence. This is abstract. It's a real Jackson Pollock going on up there. And you cannot force a realization to end this process, to relieve this pressure. It happens naturally in its own timing, and it happens in the ajna. It doesn't happen in the head center. But luckily, this is where the moon goes next. This is gate 47 now, at 8:57 tomorrow morning. This is the gate of realization in the ajna, sorting through those mental images from gate 64, making sense of the past, finding meaning in it, relieving that mental pressure. This is not an instant, quick fix kind of a process. This is something where time is needed for clarity to emerge from those pictures that are received. This has a relationship to the emotional wave, because this abstract way goes through the emotions. And so we have the wave down there, and we have a similar sort of wave up here. It takes time for clarity to come. And as with all of the head and ajna gates, the realization here is not for making sense out of your own confusion for yourself. You're sharing your realizations with others, potentially helping them make sense of their life issues rather than making it work for you. And these channels between the head and the ajna, there can be a sense of looping in them. These thoughts go round and round and round and round again until sense is made of them, or a logical formula can come out, or there's some kind of rationalization gets returned to again and again and again. That can come with its own anxiety, its own depression, its own, not melancholy exactly, it's more of an anxiety, I guess. But yeah, that sort of wanting to be free of mental pressure. Do a crossword, play chess or Sudoku. I've heard these things can be really helpful at bringing the mind down into something else, bringing that focus down into something else, and using that mental pressure in a different way. Would that work for you? Would you like to leave a message and let me know if it does? I would be very interested. And it's always helpful to have the experiences from you if you have this, or if you have an experience of it. I have the 64, I don't have the 47, so I don't know what that channel feels like. It's an interesting thing, and I would love to be able to share with my students what I hear as anecdotes. So please, your experience is so, so valuable to everybody else as an outer authority. Okay, well, thank you for watching. And as always, go gently, and I will see you for line 4. It is line 4, isn't it? We're line 4 tomorrow. Okay, bye-bye.